Hi everyone, today we are making a puzzle cube in Tinkercad. This is a really interesting model because of all of the customization that it offers. We're also going to be taking a look at how the duplicate button works in Tinkercad, as it has a really interesting feature. Let's first start by setting the snap grid on the bottom right corner to 0.5 millimeters. For me, the default was 1 millimeter. The snap grid just tells Tinkercad how much to move an object when the arrow keys are used. When something is 3D printed, there's something called tolerance. This means that since the 3D printer has filament that it extrudes that isn't a perfect size, you have to give some space in the model for imperfections when you print. Since we're making a model that is meant to fit together, we have to be careful with tolerances to make sure everything slides together well. Let's now drag in a cube. We're going to leave the size the way it is. Let's now click on the cube and press Ctrl D or the duplicate button on the top left-hand corner. This creates a duplicate of the object in the same place. We're now going to use the arrow keys to move it to the right until there's the smallest gap possible between the objects, which is 0.5 millimeters because of the snap grid that we set earlier. Be careful that you don't accidentally deselect the object or else this next step won't work. Let's hit Ctrl D again, and you can see that the object automatically moves the correct amount to the right. The duplicate tool on Tinkercad can repeat changes made as long as the object isn't deselected. Great, now we have 3 squares. Let's now rotate our view a little and select these 3 squares. Let's press Ctrl D and move all 3 to the right until, again, there's only 0.5 millimeter between the first 3 cubes and the second 3. Once the distance is right, we hit Ctrl D again and this duplication will repeat. Finally, we're going to select all 9 cubes, duplicate them, and move them up. The shortcut to move them up and down is to hold the Control key and the up and down arrow key. We're going to move this layer up until there's only 0.5 millimeter between them, and press Control D again. This creates a 3x3x3 cube of smaller cubes. Let's actually start making the puzzle now. The way we're going to do this is by connecting different small cubes so that they make puzzle pieces that fit together to make the final large cube. To make things easier to see, select all of the small cubes by hitting Ctrl A, and where you usually select the color, click Transparent. This makes all of the shapes see-through. Let's start by making our first puzzle piece. We're going to be connecting these 4 pieces. Normally, you could just group the pieces you want, but because we have that 0.5 millimeter gap between all the objects, we have to go through a little more to actually connect the pieces before we actually group them. This is done by stretching the shape so that they intersect with the piece that it's trying to connect to. We then group the cubes we are connecting by selecting them and pressing the group button, and then moving it off to the side so we can see what pieces have been used already. There are some things to keep in mind when making your puzzle. First, you usually don't stretch one piece in 2 dimensions. This is because it will make your cube larger, and it will end up with a weird thing that doesn't fit with the rest of the puzzle. There are some exceptions where it would be okay to stretch in 2 dimensions, but only if the resulting cube would not poke out of the model. Another tip is when there are 2 cubes on top of each other that you want to connect. The best way to do this is to stretch the bottom cube up rather than the top cube down. This is because the white dot that we use to stretch models vertically is on the top side of the model, and it would be difficult to try to stretch it down. Diagonals cannot be connected, so make sure that 2 pieces that are being connected have a face in common that can be put together easily. Finally, because of all of the shapes, it's easy to get mixed up and make a mistake, as I did here. Feel free to press Ctrl Z if you make a mistake and go back and fix it. Okay, so now that we have created all of our puzzle pieces, the last step is to get rid of the transparency so we can see the solid shapes. So we're going to select all of the pieces and go back to the color tab and uncheck transparency. At this point, it will be very easy to see if a connection was missed. If so, click on that piece, ungroup it, and reshape the cubes to fix the mistakes, and then regroup it. Wow, I really messed this one up. Great, it's done. This is the finished product and how it goes together. If you liked this video and made your own puzzle cube, feel free to let me know in the comments. I would love to see it.